The thing that we don't always think about is that our vision has an inner state as well. Our companies have an inner state as well. Our families have a culture and an inner state as well. Our children have an inner state. And it is by way of our powerful vision as the visionaries and thought leaders in our lives to cast that vision, uphold that vision, and fulfill that vision.
This is Becoming, the podcast for leaders to think differently with actionable tips in 30 minutes or less to claim your intuition, your influence, and your agency. And finally, get to the truth of what stands between you and who you are meant to become. Many of us believe that once we become that future self, then we will be happy, successful, and complete. This podcast exists to shine a light on the truth that the time is now and your future self can be who you become today.
Hello and welcome back, podcast listeners, to Becoming. I am your host, Stacy B, and today we are diving into vision. This episode today is episode 1 of a 4-part series diving into the aspects of vision. Now, as a leader, as you listen to this episode, having a vision is not your problem. It's not mine either. I am a very strong visionary, and vision, ideas, and creativity is never my problem. And I am confident it's not yours either. What is up for us in our growth is becoming our vision. In other words, becoming a match to our vision in advance of the vision being realized. And this 4-part series is going to deliver just that. So buckle up and let's get ready to dive into vision. So today's episode is, in my opinion, the most important part of our 4-part series, because today we are diving into our inner state. The most important part of having a vision is your inner world. It is your inner state. And it is being conscious of that inner state as you go down the path of realizing your vision. In addition to that being the most important thing for you to focus on, it's also the most important thing of the vision. Now, what do I mean by that? When I talk about your inner state, I'm talking about things that make up your inner state. And they are the following: your language, your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, and externally your actions. Because if we're all lined up and aligned inside, but our actions aren't aligned outside, then we have missed a large piece of the puzzle. The thing that we don't always think about is that our vision has an inner state as well. Our companies have an inner state as well. Our families have a culture and an inner state as well. Our children have an inner state. And it is by way of our powerful vision as the visionaries and thought leaders in our lives to cast that vision, uphold that vision, and fulfill that vision. Managing and fulfilling that vision, as we talk about these different categories that vision applies to, is one of our most important jobs, because as visionaries and leaders, if we stay committed and steadfast to the vision of our internal state, that is going to carry us no matter what the economy does, no matter what the recession does, no matter what anyone else says about our vision. If we care first and prioritize our internal state and become conscious of fulfilling that on a daily basis, that is when the game changes. So that is why I believe that this is the most important aspect of visioning and vision casting is your internal state. So we've talked about our internal state being comprised of our emotions, our language, our thoughts, our intentions, and externally, our actions. So, having and casting a vision for yourself and your results, it has to be built on the strength of a foundation, right? And I want you to think of your foundation as your internal state. So, the first question I want you to ask is, where am I with my internal state? First of all, have I ever thought of my internal state being a part of the equation of casting my vision? This can be eye-opening asking this simple question, because I know for me, when I first started, I wasn't mindful of my internal state. I was so focused externally. I was so focused on the results that I was set out to achieve, that ultimate vision would be fulfilled. But part of why that vision crumbled, if you will, is because I wasn't mindful of my internal state. And so I achieved the vision externally, but internally left myself out. In other words, internally felt unfulfilled because I didn't bridge the importance between my internal vision and my external vision. And so this is the first question I want you to ask yourself. Do I have an internal vision? Am I conscious of what's going on internally and how that translates into my external vision? That's question 1. The next question I want you to ask yourself is do I have a vision for each area of my life? And do I have a vision for my family and their internal state? Do I have a vision for my team and their internal state? What does my team feel when they come to work? What do my kids feel when they're going about their day? When they come home, think of a vision as this beautiful container that you are the creator of. You get to create the tone, you get to create the feeling, and they get to come back and that be a safe place for them to thrive in their lives. When I started thinking about this with my daughter, I wanted to be mindful of, what do I want her to feel? What do I want her to experience, no matter how my day was or how chaotic life is? I want her to know possibility. I want her to be inspired. And I want to be conscious with her. I want to be really conscious of my language. One example I was playing with the other day is, instead of saying be careful to her, instead I'm saying be aware, right? I want her to be aware whether she's doing something right or wrong. So what can I infuse for her in my language as her leader, so that no matter where she's at in life, she's being aware? Where being careful, I don't want her to be careful. I don't want her to be limited. I want her to be aware so she doesn't hit her head, or she doesn't make a decision out of spite or do something too quickly. So you can see what I mean when we're talking about this internal state, is I want her to be aware internally. I don't want her to be careful internally. That's limiting, in my opinion. So it's just a quick example of what I mean when I'm talking about casting our vision for our kids. So that's the question I want you to contemplate is, what is my vision for my kids' internal state? What is my vision for how they feel? How are they thriving? What matters to me? What do I want to be focused on day in and day out in upholding that vision for them? Because then I can be conscious of my language, my intentions, and my actions. As an example, that those are fueling the vision. And that's the biggest connection I want you to make from this episode today is, do my thoughts, my language, my actions, my emotions, and my intentions align with the vision? Because that is what is comprised of your internal state, and the most important thing as you build out your vision. The vision and the creativity and where you're going and the excitement and the ideas and all of that, that is not your problem. what I run into most is it aligning with our internal state. And so if we can start prioritizing our internal state, the vision is a byproduct. We become our internal state, right? We become our vision. And so it's all a part of this becoming. It's all a part of the importance of this bridge connecting our inner world and our outer world, and why it's so important to have this conversation now.
Are you interested in being a guest on our podcast? If so, we'd love the opportunity to speak further with you about your story and about sharing it with our audience. Click the link below in the show notes if you're interested in being a guest on our podcast, and one of the Truth Teachers team members will be in touch with you to take the next step.
There's an amazing quote that I love that Neville Goddard shares, and it is, "You are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe this is the only reason you do not see it." You are already that which you want to be. In other words, everything that is your vision is already residing in you in some way. You already are equipped to fulfill your vision. Your internal state is what needs to be activated and top of mind to fulfill that vision. It is only, as he says, your refusal to believe this, that's the only reason you don't see it. I take that to mean that the only thing standing in our way of fulfilling every single thing we want in our lives is our refusal to see that it already exists within us. Bridging our worlds, our inner world to our outer world, and connecting these dots of what makes up our inner world to fulfill our vision is exactly where we get caught up, which causes us to believe that it's not available to us. What I mean by that is that our language and how we speak about ourselves, how we speak about our kids, how we speak about our work, how we speak about our families, those are the stories and the language we're using to craft the vision. If you complain, you are fueling a vision of chaos. If you are conscious of your stories, of the meaning you give to things, and you are consciously crafting a story of empowerment, of possibility, of inspiration, of joy, you are fulfilling a vision that will realize that. And that is why I want to bring your attention to the importance of inner state, because it's often left out of the conversation as it relates to creating the lives that we desire. Again, we don't have a shortage of ideas and possibilities and creativity as visionary leaders. But what we often leave out is ourselves. We often leave out the feelings, the emotions. And if we can start checking ourselves now, what we can really harness is avoiding those things getting our way in the future. In other words, if you're a leader that has created massive success externally, I'm confident that you have experienced some form of dissatisfaction when you arrived at that goal. And it's because you didn't harness your internal state at the beginning. And so the very thing that created the vision, your intention, your emotion, your language, your action, are the things that sabotage you when you arrive there. And so why not, as leaders, harness this today? Why not start to prioritize more time within? Really harnessing our internal state and the power that we have of vision casting by way of harnessing the components that create our successful vision. Why not invest the time to get that straight so that when we realize the vision, we experience full alignment? So I'll ask you that. Are you ready as a leader to stop chasing success and become success? Are you ready as a leader to stop doing what everyone else is doing, but to really rise above the noise and invest in yourself and cultivate the components of your inner state? Are you ready to realize the truth as a leader that when you prioritize your internal state and you really check yourself, that you as a conscious leader have the ability to impact more people by having a clear, convicted inner state aligned with your vision, then if you went down the path of fulfilling your vision alone without being conscious of what's going on within, your ability to impact is exponentially increased when you prioritize your inner state. And as a leader, I know for me that I want to make quantum leaps. I want to make exponential jumps. I want to focus in outcomes versus steps. My brain starts to short out if I get too much in the weeds, right? Too much in the how. And for me, this concept has been increasingly liberating to say, wow, if I prioritize my internal state and I really check myself, my language, my emotions, my thoughts, my intentions, and my actions regularly, that actually is the shortcut to my quantum leaps, to my exponential leaps, versus just focusing on the external, just focusing on the vision alone. Because guess what? The external is going to change. But if you are all in on your internal state and see that as the fuel to fulfill your vision, to fulfill your family's vision, your life's vision, that is where the game changes. And so when we think about vision, think about internal state first. It is the most important thing to work with and to curate and to edit and to improve and expand and integrate with. Because it is the spirit, right? Your inner state is the spirit of the vision. It is the spiritual vision. It is the thing that you can return home to no matter what the economy is doing, no matter what the feedback in the market is doing, no matter what pricing is doing. There's so many factors that as leaders we have to contend with. That if we prioritize our internal state and look at that as the spirit of our teams, of our companies, of our families, we connect to the greater power and we start to co-create a beautiful company, a beautiful life, because we are prioritizing that inner state. So who you want to become rests within your ability to prioritize your internal state. And so as you go forward this week, prioritize how you're using your language first, casting the internal state vision for yourself, your companies, your teams, your families, your children, even your pets. I have used this on my pet, and I want to give you actually an example just because it came to mind, because this is how simple and powerful this is. I have had a Siberian Husky, Scarlet Jane. She is just the best. And she was really struggling health-wise, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And I noticed that I started getting lost in the feedback I was receiving from the veterinarian and all the scares, right? Talking with friends and family of, oh, she's getting old, like all of these comments. And I realized I had disconnected from my vision. My vision for Scarlet Jane is that she lead a beautiful, happy, healthy life and be the longest living Siberian Husky that ever walked the planet. That is my vision for her. For many of us, I know for me, I didn't think of taking my powerful ability to vision cast into things like my dog's life. But I'm telling you, it is the way to live a life by design. There are so many examples that I can give to you of ways that I've used this. But the biggest thing is, I wish I would have started sooner. I wish I would have known this sooner. And that's why I am so excited to share this topic with you all, because the sooner that you start implementing this, the sooner you claim your power. The sooner you claim your ability to design your life from an inner state. And that is the mirror the world shows you. Before I do anything, I ask myself, what is my vision for this, for the people involved? If the outcome had an internal state, what would that outcome be? What would that internal state be of that outcome? Because when you can start to see that there is a spiritual piece to all of this, there is an inner state to all of this, that when you're clear on that, your actions change and the impact elevates. The impact becomes absolutely exponential. Your results turn into results that take off with their own wings that you can't even predict how it would impact the people that you're designing it for. So as you go forward this week, check yourself. Number one, do I have an internal vision? Do I have clarity on what I want to feel in this experience and how the people involved feel? And the closest and best way for you to check yourself is around your language first and foremost. And so ask yourself, am I clear on my language, my intentions, my emotions, and my thoughts? And do my actions align with that to fulfill the vision? And I guarantee you that you will see a different experience as you move toward the vision that you are casting.
Are you experiencing change and breakthroughs as you listen to Becoming? If so, show us some love and hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and share an episode. I love bringing this content to you each week, and together, listener by listener, we can wake up the world. See you next week.